Welcome once again, Great Cough learners. We are back again to this question paper that we looked at before from the Northwest Province, September 2020. There is a question, there are questions that I have never attempted, so I picked one question on corporate governance and internal control. Okay, I think that is the only thing that we never looked at on this question paper. So let me just explain a few things as you are preparing for your final examination. Corporate governance and internal control. First of all, before we attempt the questions, let me explain what corporate governance is. Corporate governance is actually talking about, it refers to how organizations are managed. Here we are looking at the laws, how the laws and the policies are formulated within companies or within organizations. That is what corporate governance is all about. Okay, fine. Now let's go on to the question. Question 1.2. Okay, the following extract from an independent auditor's report of Corner Limited for the year ended 29 February 2020 is provided to you. 1.2.1. Do you see the audit report below as a disclaimer, qualified or unqualified report? Explain your answer. Let's go to the extract and read it together. The extract from the independent auditor's report. We have audited the annual financial statements of Corner Limited as set out on pages 10 to 32. In our opinion, the annual financial statements are a reasonable representation in all material respects of the consolidated and separate financial position of Corner Limited as at 29 February 2020, and its cash flow for the 52 weeks is in accordance with the International Financial Reporting Standards and the requirements of the Companies Act of South Africa, okay, have been met. Okay, fine. So this is the extract. So when you want to answer question number 1, what is it that you are looking at so that you can be able to know whether this is a disclaimer, a qualified report, or an unqualified report? Remember, a qualified report, okay, and then we've got an unqualified report, and then we've got a disclaimer. We can also call it an adverse report. Okay, so a qualified report is not actually a good report as such. It is questionable. Okay, I'll indicate that. Okay, fine. This is questionable. Things are not really clear to such an extent that, okay, the auditors have checked everything, but there are some other areas, there are some other aspects of the report that are not adhering to the International Financial Reporting Standards and the GAAP principles. Okay, that is a qualified report. But when you say a unqualified report, this is a clean report. Everything is fine, everything has been checked, and it is in accordance to the IFRS, and then also the GAAP principles. It is adhering to the the International Financial Reporting Standards principles and the GAAP principles as well. And then a disclaimer, I can just say it is a bad report. A disclaimer is a bad report. So if it's qualified, it means there are some aspects that are okay, but there are some other aspects which are not fine. But if it's unqualified, everything is okay. Auditors have checked everything, and everything is actually in accordance or is according to the requirements of the International Financial Reporting Standards. Okay, a disclaimer or an adverse, it is questionable, and everything, it can be misleading. There isn't anything good that the auditors can actually say about such a report. That is a disclaimer. So now let's go back to the extract that we looked at. Okay, we can now pick out our information from line number 2. In our opinion, the annual financial statements are a reasonable representation in all material respects. One thing that is very good. Of the consolidated and separate financial position of Corner Limited as of 29 February 2020, and its cash flow for the 52 weeks is in accordance with the International Financial Reporting Standards and the requirements of the Companies Act of South Africa. So from this extract, you can see that everything that the auditors have said about this company is good. it is according to the International Financial Reporting Standards, is meeting the requirements of the Companies Act of South Africa, it is a reasonable representation in all material respect. So this has to be a clean report. And I said a clean report, we call it what? An unqualified report. So our answer is unqualified. For 1.2.1, it's an unqualified report. What are the reasons? Now you quote a reasonable representation in all material aspects, and then you also quote in accordance with the International Financial Reporting Standards and the requirements of the Companies Act of South Africa. Then you can get your 4 marks for 1.2.1. I hope you have fully understood me on that. Do not forget the explanation that I've given you on the qualified, the unqualified, and the disclaimer or the adverse report. Let's move on to 1.2.2. Name 2 consequences that could occur if Mike and Bailey failed to fulfill their duties as independent auditors. Okay, they won't be appointed as external auditors of the company again. Okay, of course, that is one thing. Remember, they are part of SAICA. Okay, they can receive a disciplinary hearing from a professional body, that is SAICA. And then another thing that you can talk about, they could be legally charged for any loss due to their negligence. Okay, so those are the things that can actually happen to those are the consequences that can happen to Mike and Bailey if ever they fail to do their duties properly as independent auditors. Okay, and then 1.2.3, name 2 actions Mike and Bailey can take to verify fixed assets in the balance sheet. The first thing, of course, you know that fixed assets are recorded in the fixed asset register, is it? So they can check the fixed asset register, or they can do a physical a physical count of the fixed assets, or they can also check how the assets are being purchased and how they are being sold. Those are some of the things that they can check. Okay, and then number 1.2.4. Okay, it reads, the managing director of Corner Limited receives a laptop as a gift on 31 March 2020 from Techno Computers. Who are the new suppliers of the computers to Corner Limited for the next financial year? Explain 2 different concerns that the managing director should have about this gift. Okay, the first thing, of course, okay, the first concern can be that, okay, the senior directors are accepting bribes. Okay, another thing can be that it's unethical behavior can actually compromise the resources of the company, thus placing it at risk. Another thing, the image of the company can actually be compromised. Of course, it can be affected negatively. And the shareholders also, if anything that is negative is happening, they can withdraw their shareholding. And also remember, it is unethical for directors to accept any bribes. Okay, those are some of the things that can actually happen. Okay, to answer question number 1.2.4. Okay, now the last question, 1.2.5. They are saying that, okay, some stock of Corner Limited contain chemicals which expire on 31 March 2020. After a conversation with the steward manager about the procedures followed with the stock that expire, you determine that the chemicals are dumped into the river to wash away. Comment and give your advice. Okay, this question again, it can be easy even for those learners who are doing business studies. Okay, according to the King Code, it is unethical to pollute the environment in which the company is trading. Remember, they are supposed to protect the environment, not to pollute it. Polluting it is actually destroying that natural environment. Okay, so what advice can you actually give in this instance? Okay, the only thing that they have to do, especially since they are dealing with dangerous chemicals, they have to look for an expert who knows how to get rid of the dangerous chemicals in a safe way. That is the only way. They have to find someone or a company that deals with the disposals of dangerous chemicals instead of dumping the chemicals into the river, which destroys the natural environment. So that is the advice that you can give. So questions on corporate governance, most of you learners are not answering them. Just give yourself time to read and understand exactly everything that is happening. Remember what I said about a qualified report, unqualified report, and a disclaimer. The other questions are just general questions. There isn't anything that can actually be very much challenging. But when it comes to internal control and auditing, you know that, okay, fine, qualified, unqualified, disclaimer, what does it look like? What sort of information are you looking for? Qualified report, it means, okay, the report, there are some parts which are okay, but there are some other parts which are not in accordance with the International Financial Reporting Standards. A disclaimer, it is a misleading report. There is nothing that is really good about it. That's why I indicated that it is a bad report. That is all for this question 1.2 from the Northwest Province 2020 September. Thank you.